Yo, 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 and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji. With me is Kyle. How you doing, boy?
Not bad, not bad. How are things with you?
It feels strange to be podding again. Like, I felt lost while prepping for this, so...
I didn't feel lost. I was just like, freedom. We had a weekend of no football and it felt good.
I mean, we had 2 weeks of football. Just football that we don't care about.
Yeah, Nations League. What is this made up commercial tournament for no real prize, but has a tiered structure and relegation and promotion, and I don't know what they're playing for, but yeah, we don't care anything about this made up friendly tournament.
Yeah. I mean, we did get to see some good moments and some bad moments. We can touch on a bad moment, which I really thoroughly enjoyed.
Which one? England versus Germany, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Your favorite player in the world? Your favorite player in all time?
Harry Maguire.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Did you see his bad moments, by the way?
I didn't see them. As a England international fan, I didn't bother to watch any of these games. I saw the tweets, I saw the commentary, but I couldn't care less about the result and who Southgate played and didn't play. Saw all the irate comments about Tony not starting the first game. I guess Tony didn't even play the second game either, even though he was in the squad, right? And then I saw all the Maguire slander. But as I was thinking about it, I would much rather, as a United fan, Maguire and Shaw and some of these outcasts that aren't playing at their clubs at least get some game time right now. And I think the more telling thing was the time that Southgate would have gotten with a big squad to hopefully embed some of the coaching and prep and the tactics that he might want to use at World Cup time, right? Because you don't know actually who's going to be fit in that window, so you might as well make the most of the time on the training pitch with the broader squad and whatever. You could punt on the actual results now if it means that you get a better team performance in November, December.
It feels like he still, is figuring shit out. Like, he doesn't actually have a solid plan moving forward. Like, I was actually a little surprised Tomori didn't get any sort of game time. But yeah, it just there's a weird feeling, I don't know, coming out of that camp. Curious though, you being an England fan and all that, given the depth of talent that England has at their disposal, what would be your ideal formation and lineup going into the tournament versus you're going into a final versus the strongest team or whatever?
Good question. I think when it comes to a broad the depth in the squad, I think some of the things that are most glaring is the affection towards right backs and playing them in every single possible position, and his aversion to left backs and never actually starting them outside of Luke Shaw. Yeah, it's very weird and unexplainable because we've seen him do this in tournament football as well. More specific to the depth question, I feel good about it. I feel like overall there's a broad squad. I don't think that everybody has maturity or has the pedigree, not pedigree, but temperament to play international football, especially tournament football. So I think that that's one of the things that I think at the end of the day will dictate ultimately who starts. The squad obviously is still young, but not as young as that it was in the World Cup. So I would imagine that it'll be pretty similar to how he played at the World Cup. Not World Cup, sorry, Euros. I'm flip-flopping on tournaments in the order in which they happen, right? So at the Euros, I think goalkeeper, I think that's a little bit of a toss-up. I don't really like Nick Pope as England goalkeeper. I think the best shot stopper is Dean Henderson. But I would imagine that if Ramsdale is on the best form, he ends up starting. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be a toss-up between these three that were in the squad, I would imagine. I can't imagine that Pickford is either fit or retains or gets like the starting nod. So I would imagine it actually is probably Ramsdale that gets it, even though Henderson should be starting.
Yeah.
I would imagine he does play three at the back. I think that he likes the flexibility of having that, and then having either like attacking wing back. As I said, more likely than not, it'll be the right wing back as attacking. So like flat back three will probably be Maguire, which is funny, and it makes me chuckle every time I say his name. Given how much I know you people hate him, but I don't really care.
But does he really make your best 11? Like, I'm not talking about Southgate's predicted 11. Like, what would be your top 11? Surely Maguire does not end up there.
Yeah, but if I was playing 30 back, who do I play? I play Dyer, I play John Stones, and who do I play? I guess if it was going my perfect 11, Kyle Walker? No, I think Kyle Walker is like... I don't think you would want to play... well, you play Reece James at the back, but then you play Trent in front of him, right? Like, that's logical, but I think that that's a disaster waiting to happen, because I don't think that... I think, okay, Reece could defend, but... I think
Trent can't, so he has cover for that.
Yeah, but I think just how like attacking they both are, it doesn't actually work. It's so theoretical that like I don't think you could actually play both of them, because I think you get the best of both of them going forward. You probably get the worst of them going back.
This is like Lampard and Gerrard playing in the midfield.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little bit of like, okay, you would imagine that 1 + 1 = should equal 2, but it actually equals 0. And that's a terrible thing to have. So, I mean, if it was to rapid fire through, like, yeah, let's play that out, right? Let's play Trent and Reece just for hypothetical sake. Like, I think that Declan Rice obviously is the mainstay in the middle. I guess on the left wing back, like I would imagine Chilwell would be a better option. But as I said, like from like an attacking balance perspective, I think that's very aggressive. So like you get Chilwell, you get Trippier, you get Luke Shaw. You actually could see how Luke Shaw is like the best like balanced option to offset uber attacking right hand side. Yeah. Even though Shaw's attacking in and of himself. Like, who partners like Declan Rice? Like, I would say on form, it should be Jude Bellingham. Yeah. I could see, obviously, Calvin Phillips coming back in. And we know the partnership in tournament football, like how good like Phillips and Rice were. That would be...
Yeah, but Calvin Phillips doesn't play football anymore.
Yeah, I mean, which is disheartening. Like, it sucks that he got his like dream move and now he's injured. But, I mean, you would hope that his shoulder is healed and he does get a spot. But you would imagine that Jude starts. And then in front, like, Sterling and Kane, I would say. So Kane at top, Sterling behind is like the experience option. And then like the next option is like the ultimate flair player. Like Foden is good, but I probably would even go with Grealish, because I feel like Grealish is even more attacking and more flary.
But I mean, if you have such attacking wing backs, won't you want someone with a bit more defensive, I don't know, qualities to the game, like a Bukayo Saka? I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd say I wouldn't imagine that Sterling plays the entire game. So that's where my thing is. I almost want to call on... I want to start Grealish from the beginning. Like, I feel like he just offers more at the beginning, because I want to go out on the front foot, right? I don't want to be playing from behind, and I don't want to be playing like... for draws, right? Like, so I would start Grealish, and then I would have like Foden, Saka in reserve, like throwing the United players who weren't in the squad, like Sancho or Rashford. Like, I would want these as like options to come on off the bench and give you like game changing options, because arguably then you could change who's playing like in the most attacking role, like depending on who the options are off the bench. But you know that when you're starting with Kane up top as like the target man, and you have Sterling and maybe Grealish putting in crosses, then like you have a really clear attacking like game plan off the jump, right? So that's how I would hope to start games. I don't want Kane dropping back and like trying to create and playing this Tottenham style of football. Like I just want to go for actually like goals early on as opposed to Southgate ball from the last couple of tournaments.
Yeah, they were going like for a really long time without an open play goal. England,
Yeah, because
right?
he doesn't. He was playing Ole ball, right? I joked about that in
Yeah,
Euros, where
yeah,
like there was literally no difference in what Ole and Southgate were playing in terms of style of football, and in international football, it was working for England, but at United, it was frustrating as hell, and eventually it ran out of time. But yeah, open play goals were not like a thing that England was creating at all.
yeah. Any early shouts for World Cup winner?
Nah. When I get into trying to pick brackets and pools and this kind of stuff, I'll give it more thought.
Yeah,
I feel like there's the like logical big names that you would want to see like make it far. Brazil, Argentina. I feel like honestly it's not going to be a European country. I feel like it's going to be like a South American country. That's just my like hunch leaning towards that, but ask me to pick a specific winner, I have no clue.
all right, all right. What else? There's I do want to quickly cover like some injury stuff. I mean, I didn't really do research for this. This is just based on what I've been hearing, word of mouth and stuff like that. Patterson out with an injury for Everton. Isak out with an injury for Newcastle. I think Mitrovic was pictured with iced his ankle. I think most of the Liverpool boys are back. So I mean, in terms of positive injury stuff, there's that. What other big injuries were there? Am I missing anything? I feel like I'm missing something.
I don't think there was any like big ones. I think Isak was like the biggest one.
Yeah.
I guess Luka Dean maybe.
Yeah, but the thing is, I do this thing where we have a banter Instagram account. I actually was unfollowing a bunch of people that were no longer in the league or I don't care about, and I watched Luka D.
Wow, so eloquently put.
I was looking at Luka Dean's Instagram story, and he was on the bike.
Oh, was
so for a guy who has apparent foot injury or whatever, why would you be on a fucking bike? So I don't know. Maybe it's something that I need to look into, and yeah, we need to update like all the footballers to follow them and that sort of stuff. And I think what I'm gonna do as like my daily mantra: get up, have my coffee, and just watch all the Premier League football players' stories for that day, you know, or like for dinner or something like that.
What a chore.
I mean, it's better than keeping up with my friends and families, right?
Fair.
Surely.
I like how you're talking about this and you didn't plug the socials, man. So rusty you didn't insert Rass's voice.
All right, yeah, we have socials. We need followers and likes and all those fun things.
Engagement,
so I'm gonna do that.
Engagement.
Yeah, I'll do that right here then.
Yeah, for sure. So you can message us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handles at BantaB. On Discord in the Draft PL channel, Banta Boys #6585. On Reddit, /Banta_boys. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube, all under the name of Banta Boys.
All right. So while I have you here, you know, while I've caught you, if you're listening on like Apple Podcasts or you're listening on any other platform, give us a little 5 stars, you know, drop a little like heart-shaped review or something like that, you know, have fun with it. But you know, we do appreciate all the follows, the listens, all the support that we get on a daily basis. We're just gonna, you know, keep churning out as much awesome content as possible. So there's a couple of things, you know, we need to do. Oh, I'm so rusty. So what I should really say is, if this is your first time listening to the Banter Boys podcast, welcome. So our format is we typically have 2 halves. In the first half, we have a data dump. We look at the previous game week's data, just scoring categories, that sort of stuff. Default scoring is what we usually cover. Then we run through some league updates, but it's not really how we're performing, but just general like concerns about players and rosters and stuff that could be applicable to managers out there. And then we'll take our halftime pints, and then in the second half we run through Twitter questions from our beloved fans and listeners, and then we run through FA/waiver picks, which are players under 50% owned, which I'm trying to rebrand to either Drop and Shop or Chop Shop. I don't know.
I don't have any thoughts. Maybe one of the listeners will write in and tell us which one
maybe
they like better.
Yeah. So a couple of things before we get started, though. We started this experimental 24 manager league, where I basically came up with the idea of like a 5-a-side team league, right? So I looked up like legal 5-a-side formations, which I think you have a minimum of one per position. So you have like a 1-1-3 or a 1-3-1, that sort of shit. And you have 3 bench spots and an IRA spot. And the reason I got 24 managers is because we're basically drafting with the gents from the Inside Tracks series, who I'm planning to bring back on during the season and maybe during the World Cup, that fucking World Cup break, right? But I might also be doing World Cup content with Ryan, because Ryan's as obsessed about World Cup fantasy as I am. Yeah, so we're like what, 4 rounds into it right now, Kyle? Who did you draft so far, by the way? Who were your first 3 picks?
Yeah, we're just about halfway, or just kicked off the 4th round. My first 3 picks were Anthony. I'm in the 18 spot, so I went 1.18. I got Anthony there, coming back on the turn. 2.7, I got Pascal Gross. And then 18th pick in the 3rd round, I got Fabian Schär. Or Schär. I'm balanced. I have a forward, a midfielder, and a defender at this point.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised with the picks that I got. I was the 21st pick. I managed to get Ward-Prowse, Mason Mount, Calvert-Lewin, and on the way back, I grabbed Solanke. Because like it's such slim pickings at this point. I saw no good standout defender, so I thought, you know what, let me go for a forward that has a decent fixture run, has some penalties, let's see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Looking at the picks so far, a lot of different tactics. Thanks, Fantrax, for color coding the actual positions. Like some people have, I think nobody has more than 2 of... Actually, no, I lie. There's one player that has 3 mids, but everybody else... only one person has gone like heavy at one position, but everybody else has a little bit of balance. There is some like no defender teams. So
Ross.
It's like at least like
a bunch of them actually.
For like at least like a quarter or a third of the league has no defenders drafted.
Which is crazy. So
it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, right? Like, is a 5-a-side? You just need to be able to pick like the best, most high scoring from 8. So you're picking like 5 of 8 every week to start. It'll be interesting to see trades, like to go ahead, go like against your head to head. It'll be interesting to see waiver pickups, if there are any left, and how people think about that. I'm very excited
FA
for this
pickups,
format.
Right?
Yeah, honestly, I'm against it. Well, I don't know. This is a longer topic of banter. Like, my thing is we should experiment, and we should probably make the league more wild and do like rolling, like daily waivers. No FA pickups. Just like you have to know, like not know, but you have to guess like lineups and that kind of stuff as well, right? Like, because you can't wait to the day of and wait to see who's starting and not starting. Like,
that's gonna be chaos.
If you edit, you have to make a call the day before, or you have to like add a player if you want them, or you have to actually work the trade machine like with other people and see if you could find value, right? So I think that would be like a little bit more intense, but let's just see how I guess this 24 team league goes for the first time, and maybe we crowdsource, or the winner gets to pitch a a proposal or gets to enforce a proposal for the next year or something, like some legal rule.
Yeah, like I think ideally how I would want to rule it out next season, because we're starting international break, so not every manager is gonna face each other, right? We're running head to head. It'll be like luck of the draw sort of matchups. So ideally, what I think I'd do is have 20-team league.
Wait, why wouldn't everybody face each other if we have 24 teams and we have like 31 game weeks
23,
left?
right?
Or 23 teams? How many game weeks are
23
left?
teams. Yeah, but like more than once is what I'm saying.
Oh, more than once. Sorry.
Yeah, right? So like home and away sort of fixture. So ideally how I'd roll it out is like 20-team league, so 19 times 2, 38 game weeks. And that way it's almost like actual football season sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you could do it that way. I guess it comes down to ultimately if you think there needs to be a playoff or not. And
yeah.
How do you want to declare a winner? I still maintain that if
Yeah.
you're doing something like this, you could do a survivor or not a survivor, but like a guillotine league. I have some of that, like, or some of those formats in like an NFL where you do like, if you had 20 teams, arguably, you could just do every 2 weeks the combined lowest score gets eliminated. And then you just get to the end and like the players are thrown back into the player pool. And it's just chaos, like on waivers every 2 weeks when people are bidding.
I'd definitely be down to try some wellness next season like that from the start. Yeah, we need to design some crazy formats. I think people would definitely be down for it. All right. So we got a couple of jokes as well from Ryan. Ryan's trying to do this thing where we tell jokes every episode. I think football related jokes. I've got one that's non-football related, and it's not as funny because I feel like he should have DM'd one of us the jokes, so we actually appreciate its humor because we've already seen the answer to the jokes.
Yeah.
But we'll run through his jokes. So what do you call a guy with no shins?
I feel I should insert the Jeopardy music here and see if the listeners can guess it.
Dun, 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 dun,
I mean, not to keep them on the edge of their seat, you call a guy with no shins Tony.
Get it? I need to put that sound effect.
Yeah. So there you go. Ivan Toney, the man with no shins. There you go.
And what do you call a guy with very long limbs?
This one is kind of dumb, but also is probably very apropos. So lanky. Because he is so lanky. Literally, I it's funny me reading this because the way Ryan wrote it is like, so lanky, obvious.
Yeah, I know. He wrote out like the what do you call it? The phonetic spelling, I guess is what we call it. Yeah.
It's like we wouldn't have gotten it if he didn't actually specify it, right? So
yeah, exactly. So my joke for you is what is Bob Marley's favorite donut?
Not One Love. What is Bob Marley's favorite donut? Oh my god, there's gonna be something.
What type
dumb.
of donut?
It's gonna be dumb, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have no guess.
With jamming.
Oh my god. Carry on.
All right. Let's jump into the data dump.
Ay. Fantasy with the Banta Boys.
All right, so we're looking back at blank game week 8. So if there's names that are not on this list, like that would be like, why, whatever. Who are the teams that blanked again, by the way?
I was just about to ask you that. I was like, oh, who blanked? Leeds, Crystal Palace, United, Liverpool.
Brighton.
Yeah, Brighton and one more. There was 3 games that didn't go.
Chelsea.
There you go. You go. So we still know what's going on, kind of.
Yeah, we know things, So we're looking at key passes, right? So the highest number of key passes recorded all the way back in blank Imicate was 5 by Jordan Zamora. I think that's his first name.
Yep.
From Bournemouth, the fullback. And then 4 key passes by KDB, KDH, and Madison. And then 3 key passes by Will.i.an, Jared Bowen, Andreas Pereira, Harry Kane, Perisic, Saka, Bernardo Silva, and Xhaka. I've added the minutes, for like the ones that are like below 75, basically. Like the rest of them were all like high 80s, 90s sort of thing. But is there anything interesting out of this that stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, Zamora as a wing back with 5 key passes is beastly. I've probably had him on my watch list for a while. I can't remember if he's got picked up in our league. My guess is no, because not very many Bournemouth players have any ownership.
Yeah.
I think Solanke's the only one over 50% at this point. But
Oh, he's
I
finally
think that-
passed.
Yeah,
Nice,
he's 54
nice.
or something now.
Okay.
54%. So he's just ticked over. But I think that as a team, I'm very high on Bournemouth. I mean, don't want to jump ahead, but like I benefited from their good result as well. So, well, I mean, good for them, given the fact that they've had like a ridiculously hard fixture schedule to start. A draw with Newcastle was deserved, and I think that their fixtures turn, and that could be somebody, given that he is nailed, that you might want to be able to target to pick up. Outside of that, the other one that I was on the fence on, like just for our league, and I didn't pull the trigger on, was Will.i.an. Like, I can't believe this old man is performing, and that's something that I'm like appalled by. But yeah, both him and then Andres Pereira also had 3 key passes. So it's interesting to see Fulham's attack continue to perform. I know that there's been obviously debate, and there's a question coming up on like Mitrovic and like looking ahead. Do we think that he could keep performing and that team could keep performing? But if he's getting creators like Will.i.an and Pereira creating chances, and Joe Paulinho, he also had a goal, right, in the last game.
Yeah. And he's suspended.
Yeah, he's suspended now, which is crazy that he was the first one to get like the 5 yellow card suspension. But if they're creating chances, then I still am somewhat high on their attack. They still have Dan James as well. Like, they have actually like decent options available. So
Like
I think
depth.
I think Fulham was interesting. And then the other one, last one I'll call out, was the double 4 key passes by the Leicester attackers. And jumping a little bit ahead to their fixture after the break, like, is this gonna be Rodgers' last game in charge? Will they keep up? Like, who's gonna ultimately be on the end of these passes and ultimately putting the ball in the back of the net where it matters most? I think that it's good to see a lot of chances being created actually by these I don't want to say mid to lower table teams, but it'll be interesting to see how much of them can convert these chances that they create, right?
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing that Leicester's at the bottom of the Premier League table with only 1 point. So Monday's like a massive fixture.
Yeah. Bottom of the table clash, right?
Yeah, man. That is a massive fucking game. Yeah, I forgot you had picked up Billing. That paid off immediately. I guess you're going to be holding on to him given their fixture run as well, right? I mean, because the way you're going to look at the next phase of the season, let's say, from game week 9 till game week 16, because then we have that fucking World Cup.
Oh, that sounded perfect. That should be the snippet that you use for the clip. Just save yourself like the agony of saying it and just like clip that right there.
Exactly. So obviously you're looking at the next 8 game weeks, and I mean, depending on whatever fixture ticker you're using or whatever, like the one I'm looking at right now is off footballfallout.com. People create their own ones, that sort of stuff. But Bournemouth have an amazing one, right? Brentford at home, Leicester at home, Fulham away, Southampton at home, West Ham away, Spurs at home, Leeds away, Everton at home.
Yeah, I mean, I was calling this for a while. I probably sounded like a broken record being high on the Bournemouth assets. I thought strength of schedule hopefully it had to balance out. Like just on paper, looking at the names, like not looking at form. They had it front loaded. They had it the worst of everyone as a relegated or a promoted team. Sorry, like everybody was fearing that they were staring down the barrel of relegation, but coming out of it somewhat alive, manager change and all, and not being bottom of the table, and now having that fixture run, I think is pretty good. As I said, outside of like the terrible 9-0 defeat to Liverpool, they've held their own. They've created chances. Like they've had a little bit of niggles with the squad, which is a big question though that I would call out. Like fitness and health will be a thing that I think is probably the biggest determining factor for them, because compared to the other promoted teams, like they're the most shallow. Nottingham obviously loaded up, and Fulham somewhat loaded up. I think they loaded up more like judiciously and balanced. Nottingham is fucking 25 players or something that we don't even know who's who, right? So I think Bournemouth as like the team of continuity, if they get into form, I think that they could actually string together results. And I like all their assets who remain, not all, but like Tavernier, Billing, Zamora. Like you go through your list, like Lewis Cook, Ryan Christie, like all of them actually could give you something on their day. So I'm looking at Bournemouth assets as streaming assets when lineups come out and I need to plug and play with somebody. And yeah, Billing, Solanke, Tavernier are probably most nailed for me, and then everybody else is probably like streaming options.
Yeah, like I wish like you were able to compare the few games that Parker was in charge for versus post Parker. Like it's hard to look at that, like compare that data, because like he had tough games, like you said, right? The likes of Liverpool, Man City, all of that. But I feel like now with Parker gone, they will be playing with a bit more freedom, because even when Parker was in charge at Fulham, I felt like he was just too timid with his teams. Like he cared more about not conceding versus actually attacking, where now there's a lot of discussion and talk about like it's very rare to find any of the EPL managers actually playing defensive football, like parking the bus for that 1-0 win or whatever, like the Big Sam types, right? Or the Tony Pulis sort of teams. Now everyone's just trying to go gung-ho and just try to score as many goals as possible. So, I mean, given the fact that, yes, they've gotten over that tough-ass fucking start, now with the freedom of these fixtures, yeah, like you said, Bournemouth assets might be gold right now.
It could be. I mean, last season, they did still score a lot of goals, right? Like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, they scored what, like 73 goals and conceded. They had the best defense in the championship last year.
I believe so.
Yeah. So I don't think they were short on scoring last year. Of course, like different league, but yeah, they scored 74 and conceded 39. So. In general, like I think it could work. Like I don't know how much of it would have persisted, and we can't play shoulda, coulda, woulda in terms of how Parker would have actually set up against probably opposition of the same quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a fair point still, and I think we judged them. We can only judge them on what they look like today and like what they look like moving forward. And so far, as I said, like they've acquitted themselves well outside of like those terrible like heavy defeats, and the team has looked good. Like the actual players individually have looked good, right? So that's what I am banking on. I think, as I said, I'd say ranking the top three, I'd go Solanke, Billing, and then Tavernier. Where I think that those two have more upside from an attacking perspective. The top two have more attacking upside, and then Tavernier has more balance in terms of both attacking and defense or defensive actions, but is nailed on to start.
Yeah, and has probably better ghosties compared to the first two.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
less variance, but yeah, it all depends on what you're looking for. And as I said, all of them are still very available.
Yeah. All right. Let's now look at shots and how many of those were on target. So the highest number of shots attempted in that blank game week was 7 by James Madison. He had 3 on target. Then 4 shots attempted by Jared Bowen, who had 0 on target. Jesus, who had 3 on target. Ryan Frazier, who had 1 on target. Mitrovic, who had 1 on target. Shar with 1 on target. And Son with 4 of his 4 on target. I think the next list, I think I was supposed to put 3, but I might have been half asleep when I was making this list. But I think 3 shots attempted by long list of players. Joelinton with 1 on target. Barnes with 0 on target. Ryan Christie, another Bournemouth player you could possibly grab with 1 of his 3 on target. Coutinho with 1 on target. Daka with 2 of his 3 on target. I think Daka is one player we should talk about later on. Phil Foden with 1 of his 3 on target. Isaac or whatever, who's injured now, with all 3 of his shots on target. Bukayo Saka with 1 of his 3 on target. Tielemans with 2 on 3 and 2 of 3 on target. And then Ryan Yates, a Nottingham Forest player, with 1 of his 3 on target. What's kind of interesting is that for a Spurs team that before I get your take, I just wanted to mention something that we didn't really mention with the key passes stuff. It's interesting that these Leicester players dominated so much versus a Spurs team that is apparently so fucking solid at the back.
You read my mind. And also, given that this game freaking ended 6-2.
Yeah.
Like, it is wild to see that we had 2 Leicester players up there in terms of key passes. Like on 4, we see shots from Madison up there. Like we see Daka, Tielemans, Barnes all in there. It's absolutely wild to look at this like individual statistical performance and then be like, oh yeah, but Son came off the bench and scored a hat trick and like nothing was the same, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, Son came off the bench, 4 of 4 shots on target and 3 of them were goals, right? Like it's absolutely mind-blowing to think about this as like a result. But yeah, like that cameo was like worldly. Yeah, honestly, as I say, you read my mind. That was the thing that I was gonna call out. On the flip side, like I was also then gonna call out the fact that somebody like Kane, as usual, not as usual, as usual as this season has been, like doesn't show up in shots, but shows up in key passes. Like the same thing that we've been pointing out with Salah all season, like the flippening of where people are ending up from a statistics perspective is like, hilarious. And then the other one that was like a call out for me was Bowen and West Ham, and the fact that I feel like this is one of the first weeks we've seen, and I could be wrong, but like we've seen a West Ham name in terms of attacking performance. But he shows up with 0 of 4 shots on target, right? So it's kind of wild that they have nothing going for them from an attacking perspective. And talk about, I mean, I feel like I was beating the drum at the beginning of the season that Moyes could be first manager fired. They go obviously load up on attacking talent in the transfer market. They get Paqueta, they get Cornet. And it's just like, man, like nothing has changed with respect to their actual like attacking output on the pitch. So it'll be interesting to see post international break if the players that weren't away on duty like actually got a little bit more time on the training pitch. If Moyes is open to shifting like his rigid stance.
Tactics.
Yeah, right?
The problem is the tactics. Like the game versus Everton, it was like for like subs. Like, sure, you've got attacking talent, but like do something different. Like he takes off Antonio, brings on Skamaka. Why not play both of them? Like do something different, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's fascinating. Like I have a lot of concerns about some of these teams, and I think that this first game week coming back from the international break like will be somewhat telling, where of course I think individual players would have gone off and found form, but also the players that didn't go away that maybe put in some additional time on a training pitch, or maybe they just got rest and everybody just needed a vacation because the season started so early and people just needed a little bit of break. So yeah, I think some of this will be telling this first game back how people hit the ground running.
Yeah. So I heard something interesting as well during the international break that apparently Ward, the Leicester keeper, is the like in terms of I think rankings and out of all goalies, he's 21st.
Oh yeah, he's he's terrible, man.
So he's worse than somebody's sub goalkeeper as well.
Yeah, I mean the stat always comes up, man. Like this is the Nicholas Latifi stat for F1 fans out there. It's like he is 21st out of 20, and there's only 20 like cars on the F1 grid, right? So yeah, Ward has been not shockingly bad. Well, he has been shockingly bad on his own, but their defense has just been shockingly bad. I think that was generally the area of concern at the beginning of the season, where like Schmeichel left, and then of course there was the entire Fofana debacle for a while, and there was no reinforcements coming for them. So it was going to be sink or swim. And they have chosen to sink at the back. And it'll be telling to see, because obviously I think he is an international goalkeeper. He was also playing, hopefully, to find form. I imagine he's going to the World Cup with Wales, I believe. He's Welsh, right?
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see, like, how much... I don't want to say how much torture he puts this squad through, but like, yeah, both in the beginning of the season and then with the World Cup to play for, like, does anything change at the back with both him and then the folks in front of him, right? So, yeah, it's been shocking their entire sort of defensive display. It hasn't just only been Ward. Some of these goals that he's conceded, like, he's had no chance in, like, being able to stop.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Because, I mean, based on, like, the first two categories we've kind of discussed, nothing seems wrong with their attack. That seems fine. It's just a matter of outscoring people now.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to do that on most days when they're just shipping 3. Right?
Yeah. And Vardy looks old as fuck. So.
Yeah, let's not talk about him.
All right, let's move on to the next category, accurate crosses into the box. So there were a few twos and a bunch of ones. So we're just going to look at the twos. So Bailey, Cancelo, Rico Henry, Perisic, Trippier, James Ward-Prowse, and Willock.
Nothing to see here.
Thoughts?
Wing back
No?
central. Like,
Yeah.
It's like
I
the
mean,
same thing that we've
yeah.
seen for most weeks. Like the wing backs are like really the creators of crosses. So I think that's sort of representative of like the tactics, the dueling tactics that are playing a lot of these games. And it's usually like the same names. So Perisic when he starts, Trippier, Neil-Don, Cancelo. Like we don't have obviously Trent and Robertson or Liverpool, whoever's playing at left back, like here, given that they didn't play, but you would expect those folks to show up. So yeah, I think the wing backs in terms of creating chances from crosses like are nailed on, and then Willock is one of these names. That would be the only sort of not big name, but like the individual call out name that I would make, because I feel like we've talked about him as sort of a steady Eddie, but he's getting into really good attacking positions and he's been playing more advanced midfield, and that's been really good to see the positions he's been getting into in the box and like being there not just for like well, I think he showed up with key passes, crosses, and shots on different weeks. So Willock is definitely a name that I like out of like our steady Eddie bucket.
Yeah, true that. All right, random extra stuff. I don't think there's anything too big from it. It was good to see like McGinn show up in like the top 2 tiers of tackles one. Like he came back into his why McGinn is such a reliable pick. In this last game week, I think he put up like 12.5 points, like pure ghosties. And I mean, if you look at his like tough like sub 5 point scoring games, like there was 4 or 5 of them, he did have a few tough fixtures in there, right? So maybe McGinn is not as bad as people think he is. Tarkowski topped 2 categories last game week in terms of clearances and block shots with 9 and 5 respectively. What else was there? In terms of aerials, I thought it was interesting. So there were 3 players tied for highest number of aerials, 6 of them, and it was each a defender, midfielder, and a forward in Janssen, Onana, and Watkins. I just thought that was like cool. And then another interesting thing is highest number of offsides was 1 offside by a bunch of people. So people were either really disciplined or there was fuck all attack in that last game week. So
Yeah, nothing to scream about.
yeah, nothing too crazy. Just kind of want to mention those quick tidbits. All right. So let's do quick league update stuff. And yeah, let's see what we can pull out of this in terms of discussion. All right, Kyle, why don't you start first? Talk about what was good, any regrets, any roster concerns you have moving forward, and, picks or whatever that you would have made over the international break.
Yeah, I mean, the quick hit on the game week was that I, like everybody, had to chop and change. Hopefully you listen to us and you try to play against what your opponent had as best as possible and cover them off, because you didn't want to end up in a position where you just had to drop good players just to feel like you would have a full 11 and not even know if they were going to play, right? So I did that. As I mentioned earlier, I was very tempted to go with like Fulham players like Will.i.an on that first game, but I held off. I ended up picking up Billing though and Ramsey, and honestly, that's what nailed it for me. So I ended up winning by 30 plus points, and literally it was all Billing, Ramsey, and Isaac's goals that secured my win. Outside of that, no regrets about making drops. I dropped essentially the players that I had already planned to pick up from game week 7 that didn't have games. So it was like the Leeds players and Crystal Palace. So I had the option to do that, so it was no regrets there. And then the only sort of forward-looking problem looking into game week 9 was, do I drop these players that I picked up, essentially streaming them, and go back to the players that I had from before? So far, I have resisted that, but let's see what it looks like before next match day. My biggest concern, though, is that I now have Isak red flagged alongside literally all my forwards. So my only fit forward is Jamie Vardy. I still have Rodrigo, who was supposed to come back, red flagged. I have Isak now, and I have Martial, and I'm left with literally only Jamie Vardy. So it'll be interesting to see who I start and how I cover off my opponent in this next game week. But who is Ras, by the way, who's not here. So it'll be
This
interesting.
guy's on permanent vacation, man. I don't know.
That guy's living life while we are here producing the content. So hopefully I'll come up with some grand plan to outsmart him before Saturday kickoff.
Yeah, I told this guy, HR didn't approve his vacation, man. He's just off gallivanting.
Traveling the world.
It's funny that you traded out Sterling, you traded out Haaland. If only you had these firing players in your squad, what might have been?
I mean, all of this is against the backdrop, and I know you are going to cover off your losing streak coming to an end, right?
Yours as well. So kudos to us, right?
I know, yeah. Well, I wasn't lowest scoring. I got a win. I'm still bottom of the league, but
speaking of lowest scorer, Ian owes us a video.
I know. I'm sure you guys will get on him for that. But looking at the entire table, there's still a win out of 8. I'm a win out of 8th in 12th right now, and the leading number 1 and number 2 in the league are at 5 and 2. So it isn't if anybody is running away with this. There's still a little bit of a spread with points for and points against. Mine is about 40. So even then, I don't think I'm being demolished. I've just had really bad luck, and you would hope that turns a little bit as the season goes by, and I don't need to just rely on a one hitter in Haaland, even though it would be nice to definitely have him in my team.
Yeah, true. So moving on to my one. So in terms of the good, being patient with Madison, not trading him out because he was having a shit run, showed up with a massive haul of 28, and that just included one goal, right? So that's 18 points in ghosties, which is kind of mental. Again, we talk about like that Spurs team being like solid defensively. So yeah, I mean, even Leicester has a really good fixture run moving forward as well, right? They've got Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth away, Crystal Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away. So it's nice 5 fixtures to kind of grab Leicester assets, maybe trade Leicester assets, ones that haven't been performing, punt on maybe like a Harvey Barnes. And we'll talk about like even the likes of Daka in the next segments and stuff like that. But yeah, I think Leicester going forward, they definitely do have some potential. I picked up Fabio Vieira from Arsenal as a punt against an Arsenal fan, actually. I needed a player, and I know I've been harping on about, I won't drop Kovacic, but I was like, okay, I actually didn't want to lose. I actually didn't want that 5 loss in a row. So I punted on Vieira, man. No Odegaard. I was like, what have I got to lose? And it paid off quite nicely, right? He got a goal, gave 16 points, and you know what? He might be an asset for the rest of the season. Who knows if Odegaard is going to have these random niggling injuries, Europa games, and that sort of stuff. So it's worth a punt. If he's in the lineup, I think you start him because he looked good, right? He took his goal really, really well. Damsgaard getting 8 points coming off the bench. Again, managers in this league have been questioning why are you holding on to an asset that isn't playing, but I mean this again showed real promise, real potential of what sort of asset he could be maybe for Brentford moving forward. I mean, he's got a really nice fixture up next, right, in Bournemouth away, so if he does get that start, he got a really nice assist for Denmark. I think it was their first or second goal or something. They only scored 2 goals, but he had a really nice pass for that assist, and he started for them. So I don't understand why he's not starting for Brentford. In terms of regrets, no real regrets. I grabbed Mikolenko as a 0 fab pick because I feel like Everton just look a lot more solid defensively. I know Patterson is out injured, and that probably brings back in old man Seamus Coleman. But in terms of Connor Cody, Tarkowski, 2 previous captains at their, previous clubs or whatever, and then in front of that, they've got Onana, they've got Idrissa Gueye. Like, it's got a solid feel, like solid core to that team, right? That I feel like they're just going to set up really, really nicely defensively, right? And people were screaming about, Begovic is shit, but he did okay. And, if Pickford is fit, then that might be a solid option for clean sheets moving forward. In terms of roster concerns, I feel like I have too many good assets. I know that's like a terrible attempt at a humble brag.
Very
it wasn't
cliche.
humble at all.
So
but
cliche.
I'm wondering if I
My
should
team
do
is
some
perfect.
yeah, I mean, but now I'm gonna have headaches of who am I gonna start, and then it's gonna be a pain in the ass. And I'm wondering, maybe do I 3-4 game weeks down the road, maybe try and trade out do a 2-for-1 trade, right, and get one of those top 3, top 4 round players, right? Like maybe do like a Damsgaard and a Morgan Gibbs-White for like a Kulusevski.
Why is somebody doing this trade? I like how you want to
know.
do a 2-for-1 and hope that the other person on the other side is going to give you the best player in the deal. Oh my
I don't know.
god. Wishful thinking, eh?
I do. I know. I have it every day, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I need to do something with that. But yeah, got that win by only 10 points or so. But we move forward. But yeah, I think now what we can do is take our halftime pint. And we'll be back with questions and picks. So see you after the break. And we are back. All right. So we got some questions from some fans / listeners. I'm not sure how we want to run through this. Do you want to read them out, or do you want to answer them?
I could read them out. I feel like some of them we kind of touched on, but
Okay.
I could rapid fire through them.
Yeah. Go for it.
as I said, I feel like we've spoken to a little bit of these topics before. So the first one's from Robbie P at A Team of Caras. And it's a pretty short question. Is Mitrovic a top 6 pick? And I assume moving forward for the rest of the season.
Top 6, boy. That's tricky.
I mean, the context here is that he in our 24-team league, which we just started up, he went at 6. So I guess he's throwing a shot at the manager who took him, or, inquiring, was that a good pick or not? If you had to do a draft right now for the rest of the season.
Yeah, rest of the season. I don't know if he'd be top 6, but I think he'd be top 10 or 12 for me.
Got it. Okay, so if I rapid fire through the draft board, top 10, it went Haaland at 1, KDB, Salah, Kane, Son, Mitrovic at 6, Trent, Cancelo, Gabby Jesus, and Ivan Toney at 10. So if you're not taking Mitrovic at 6, who of Trent, Cancelo, Gabby Jesus, or Toney is going to be higher than him?
Cancelo, I want to say.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. Like, I want to say I'd take Jesus before Mitro, but Mitro's putting up better ghost points than Jesus is as well.
Yeah, Mitrovic is a beast in the air. Like, as we talked about in the earlier segment, I feel like he's getting a lot of creative contribution from the folks around him. And I would argue that their fixtures have been kind of hard. So from that perspective, if the fixtures are going to be lighter, and he's already shown that he is fixture proof at this point, I want to say that he's going to put up at least 10 plus points per game, which is not bad, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what you would want from any reliable player, right? Yeah. I mean, given the fact that those are the first 5, would you even argue maybe potentially he rivals Son as like a top 5 pick? Given Son's start?
I would, because Son did nothing, and kudos to all the Son owners who held the faith. But in reality, I think, like, from a lesser variability perspective, I want to say Mitrovic, assuming he stays fit and plays the entire season, he's looking. I want to just be like flamethrower right now. I would say that I almost feel like I would have Mitrovic over Haaland, right? Just purely from like a floor perspective on ghosties, because Haaland does not get any ghosties, man. Yeah, it's boom or bust, and he has not busted, right? Like,
yeah, it's true. But I think it's hard to say, like, it's really weird to see Trent doing such shit. But I mean, this is because Liverpool has had such an inconsistent start in terms of like lineups, injuries, all that sort of stuff. Like, if you had the perfect fit starting lineup for Liverpool, I mean, maybe Trent wouldn't be performing as bad, and he'd still go before Mitro, right?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. Like, but I mean, we can only judge these teams on how we expect them to perform for this season, right? And I think that Liverpool problem isn't one that, and there's just me, I don't think that this is a problem that gets fixed like this season. I think they hit, I don't want to say a wall, but they definitely came up against Father Time, who's undefeated. And I think that squad needs like a little bit of a refresh. Of course, they started it, and they have like been buying like youth players to integrate, but I think honestly, like, if Mitrovic is obviously going to be a nail starter, like I am super high on him, but I don't think the owner of him is trading him in leagues where he's already leagues that are already like drafted. Our league where this person took him at 6, maybe that person would move off of him. But we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
Next question. I'll go to the next question from Tash at Draft Tash. And this one's a little bit long, multi-part. So let's break it down. With so many games before and you can insert the Sanji saying that fucking World Cup.
That fucking World Cup.
Are there any players in the top 6 teams that are set and forget? So I'll break it into chunks. I'll feed you that question first.
Yeah. Top 6 teams. So this is like right now the top 6 table or like our general
I think
top
he went
6?
quote unquote, so it's the traditional top 6.
Traditional
top 4
top 6.
plus.
Yeah.
I was going to say Arsenal and Tottenham because I think United is the top 4 club, but
Yeah.
let's go the traditional top 4, or traditional top 6, sorry.
Okay, so we'll start with Man City, right? So Man City, set and forget. I mean, Holland has to be there, obviously.
Because he has no World Cup.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, like, I still think, like, you could risk starting him even if he's benched. Like, I feel like this guy would still get minutes, come on and score. Like, he's that fucking lethal.
Yep.
It's disgusting how lethal he is. I mean, KDB is an obvious one, right? Shitting out key passes out of his ass. Like, I heard on a different podcast as well that there was a quote from Pep or something like that, like related to KDB, that he's more concerned about upping his assists this season. I mean, you think about last season, they didn't really have that proper number 9. KDB and others had to play that false 9 role, right? So KDB obviously ended up into more goal-scoring positions. But now with Haaland, like, he's got like an absolute goal machine to feed, right? But yeah, other players from Man City that are nailed. I want to say Phil Foden, but I still feel that is such a gamble sometimes, man. Do you look at like minutes that they've played so far as like checking, who is assured? Like, obviously your goalkeepers, like your Edison and stuff, that's why I don't discuss goalkeepers as like options or whatever, because they're always gonna be nailed, right?
Generally,
yeah, maybe. Huh?
I said generally they will be.
Yeah, but I mean, the reason I'm hesitant to say Phil Foden is because, I don't know, that rotation, man. That rotation is weird. I don't know. Ruben Diaz should be nailed. Cancelo should be nailed. Rodri should be nailed. Who else? Maybe Bilva? I don't know. Is there anyone I'm forgetting, really?
Yeah, I mean, Gundogan.
But he's been rotated, right?
Yeah. Grealish, Kyle Walker, just going through your squad. Like, yeah, I think you called out the ones. It'll be interesting. Like, any thoughts on Akanji? Do you imagine
Johnson's
that
got an injury, right?
Yeah, and do you imagine that Akanji's always going to be one of them is always injured, like Stones, Ake. Like, I can't keep track, man. So Akanji looked good. Obviously, he only got the one game before the international break. But would you imagine that if he is the fit center back that you're playing, the fit center back at City?
I think now that Laporte is back from injury, Laporte comes in instead, though.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Laporte. So yeah, no, it's a good shout. Good shout. So yeah, there you go. Some center back will be there. I mean, if a rapid fire through then Liverpool, like you have Salah, Trent, Luis Diaz, Virgil. Would you imagine those are the only ones nailed?
You said Mo Salah, obviously, right?
Yeah, that was the first name I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Because I think you can easily rotate the likes of Jota, Firmino, Darwin Nunez. That midfield is a shit show. Like, honestly, spin a wheel, guess whoever's fit and wants to start, right?
Yeah.
I think if Matip is fit, he'd be nailed.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you went Arsenal, I mean, their squad is like entirely nailed outside of whoever shows up on the injury report, right? So, Gabby Jesus, Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, Xhaka, Saliba, Magalhaes, Ben White seems to be nailed, keeping out Tomiyasu.
Apparently a right back, yeah.
Keeping out Tomiyasu. Zinchenko is injured, so obviously he isn't playing. But, like, you have to imagine that that's like pretty nailed on. Their
Yeah.
squad hasn't changed. Same thing with Spurs. Pretty much has been nailed outside of whatever is happening with Perisic and Ryan Sessegnon.
I mean, the only person nailed in that Spurs team is Emerson Royale.
Oh yeah, that man. Yeah, like he's invincible at this point. Even though he didn't start your last game, right? But he's been almost fixture proof.
I mean, speaking of who didn't start the last game, in a blank game week, I had like 3 or 4 Spurs defenders and none of them started.
Yeah, that was hilarious because you loaded up on Spurs and then literally all of them were benched. And somehow you still won. I can't believe it. And I ended up with...
I legit had the handcuff.
No, I know. And I ended up with the Spurs. I ended up with one Spurs defender that started in Davison Sanchez somehow. And you ended up with all of them that are benched. Which was hilarious.
Mental. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I think that squad is pretty nailed, so not even needed to run through it. And then United.
I mean, before we move on though, I don't think that back five is as nailed as we think it is. I think it's really just Dyer that is the only nailed one, right? Because Longley, Sanchez, Romero, Davies, we've seen the rotation there.
Well, Romero was injured, right, when he was out of the game or out of the lineup, and then he came back.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I think Davies has been nailed, but no, he's carrying a knock after not playing in the international break. Like, he should be back post it.
Yeah.
I want to say that there still is like a hierarchy there. I don't think Longley is is the starter. I want to imagine that their actual like starting back five is one of like Perisic or Sessegnon, and then you end up with Dyer, Davies, and Romero, plus your favorite guy at right back or right wing back in Emerson Royale. So
yeah,
that's my hypothesis. But to your point, though, I think that owning the rest of them, and we don't need to go on a tangent on why you do not drop Matt Doherty, but everybody except for Matt Doherty will find some time to play. And yeah, I don't know why you're holding on to him.
Well, I mean, I heard on podcasts I was listening to during the international break that apparently Doherty was still feeling pain up until the international break or stuff like that. So he still wasn't fully recovered. And there were comments coming from Conte saying that post-international break, once he's fit and stuff, he's going to want to integrate the likes of Doherty and Bissouma. So like even though I do think Højbjerg and Bentancur are fairly nailed, I think who comes at risk is really the 3 of the front 4, right? Of Richarlison, Kulusevski, and Son, because it shows Conte's ability to change from a 3-4-3 to a 3-5-2, which does affect the way Heung-min Son actually plays in the games, which is crazy. But I mean, this is not a Spurs podcast. This could be an entire like tactics podcast. So let's move on to the next team.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna rebut, but not worth it at all. Because why would you be putting this guy on the bench? And I mean, if he still had some pain, why not recover? But I guess that's what happened. He come and sit on the bench and he rests, right? United, that was the last one.
I love that you picked United before Chelsea.
Nah, I mean, I was going to go Chelsea and then I just hit United.
No, let's go United.
I was scrolling from the bottom up, so then I was also, you have a new manager. Nobody knows what's nailed or not nailed at that club because we haven't seen it yet. But United, obviously, pretty nailed. Like, Ten Hag hasn't rotated. He's obviously being frustrating to people that overpaid for the new assets, like 44 fab spent on Casemiro. But yeah, like he's being very disciplined in who like starts and who understands and plays his system. It'll be interesting, obviously, after international break to see how that does change. But I want to imagine that the back line is pretty nailed outside of injury with Dalot, Malacia on the wings, and Lissandro and Varane. And then you would imagine that Casemiro comes in and plays with Eriksen and Bruno out wide, Sancho, and possibly... this is where it gets tricky because I know Rashford is carrying a knock as well. So technically it could be Anthony out wide and then Rashford up top, or... It'll be interesting. I think everything outside of the attacking like options are where it becomes a little bit of like it becomes nailed, and then up top it becomes a little bit of a roller coaster. Because Elanga has started games at the beginning of the season. Cristiano has come off the bench. Yeah,
I honestly think it's just Bruno that's nailed. Like, I'm not counting Eriksen as an attacking asset right now. I think Bruno is the only attacking asset that's nailed.
But I think Eriksen is in like the steady Eddie category, and I think that if Casemiro gets like the starting spot, then I think that frees up Eriksen to do a lot more. Because he doesn't need to play as much. Like, well, you would hope he doesn't need to play as further back as if he was playing with Fred or McTominay. So that's my thought on it. That we actually, and that's why I was fine with trading for him, is that I thought he was like nailed at the floor, but I thought there was a lot of upside when the squad beds in. So I think that's kind of it. And then Chelsea, because I think we talked about all these teams for way too long.
No one is nailed.
Yeah, and that's why I left that one to last, because I feel like nobody's nailed there, right? Like, we don't know exactly how Potter will line up, and now that he's actually had the benefit of not just the international break, but the blank game week, it'll be interesting to see how, like, especially, of course, having that week before everybody went away, like, how does he actually want to set up, right? Like, that's the more interesting thing to me.
I mean, if I had to take a shot in the dark, I would say Reece James should be nailed.
Why are you taking a shot in the dark when you were one of the people, I don't want to say complaining, but very well aware of like Potter's rotation carousel before the season at Brighton, right?
I know, but still gotta try and answer the question. Still, I would say Reece James, especially based on like talent.
Fair.
Mason Mount maybe is a bit reborn. I want to say also Raheem Sterling. Other than that, I think everyone is a possible rotation option. Like, again, I go back to when you asked me weeks ago, who do I think would be the random punt that would break into the Potter's team, and I said Broja. Again, it would not surprise me if this kid started games now. Like,
yeah, he's literally been hot potatoes in our league. He's literally, I feel like, he's ended up on 3 or 4 different squads at this point.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's a worthy punt at 15% owned. Speeding up to the rest of Tash's questions though. I feel like the other two are probably yes. I won't say yes, no, but maybe a shorter answer. The question was, are we finally going to get Damsgaard Day this weekend?
Yes.
So he starts and I want a prediction from you. What's the stat line from Damsgaard if he starts? Or assuming he starts.
Playing Bournemouth, I think he can put up 12 points without an attacking return.
There you go, folks. Hold him to this. That's one you should tweet out. This is what you should do actually for a segment every week. Tweet out your, I don't want to say hot pick, but your actual like predicted line.
So he played 31 minutes versus Croatia, and then he played 60 minutes versus France, and he got an assist in that game. So I don't know, man. That's 90 minutes, right? With an attacking return.
Wow! Yeah. Look at this quick math.
Yeah.
X90. That's interesting. I rate it. And then the last question from Tash to get to the end of this one was, what kind of dirt does Maguire have on Southgate?
Bro, I feel, Kyle, you should take a crack at this, man. I don't understand. Because he came out, I think, in the media and was like, they cannot win the World Cup or survive the World Cup without Harry Maguire. Like, what is going on?
We need leadership. Like, at the end of the day, we need leadership. Honestly, like,
is he really a good leader?
I want to say yes. Like, there's something about this guy. I don't know what it is, but like his teammates don't hate on him, except for Eric Bailly. Like, in reality, like, there's never been a bad thing said about Harry Maguire at club level, like from the inside or at international level. I mean, last World Cup he went and he played, right? Like, and he was at Leicester at that point, and yeah, like he wasn't. I don't want to say he wasn't a big name. Like, he got his move off the back of like being solid and ultimately like being like a no frills, no fuss defender. And from that perspective, I think in terms of having the pedigree and the temperament that is necessary for the international game and for tournament football, like, I kind of rate it. Like, I think that even if he loses his starting spot, I think Southgate wants it to be like a meritocracy, whereas on like the back of somebody coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm the captain now," right? And like actually like wrestling that position
Insert
away.
meme.
Yeah, insert meme, like wrestling the position away from him, as opposed to just being like, "Yo, we're just chopping and changing, and we're just going against, or we're just going whichever way we think the wind is gonna blow," right? So I think from that continuity perspective, like Southgate's always been that way, where he's not just like granted a starlet a position into the team because of like everybody else in the media hyping them up. So I rate it. Like we talked about this on the top. I think that like we need to judge it when the World Cup actually comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Fast forward.
Cool.
Next 3 questions. I feel like we could speed up through these ones as well.
Yeah.
They all came from Ben at Ben Chickens. First one was one that was already broached in the draft that we mentioned, the 24 teamer. And it was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Does he fire or does he get fired? How would you measure success for him this season in returning to the Premier League?
I'm a blood clot young. The only good thing to come out of his Arsenal career was that, by the way. No, he did win the Golden Boot with them, right? So, I mean, there is like proof in the pudding, as they say, that he, can be a good asset. He's only had like 1 appearance under Potter, which was in the Champions League, right? He played 66 minutes. He had the assist for the goal. He had 1 shot off target, 2 shots blocked. He had a key pass. His passing accuracy was shit. Was like 64.3%, but you don't really expect too much from like a finisher, right? Really. There was no defensive stats. So it's just purely goals, right? I'm not sure what to really expect, because even if you look at his average positioning for that game, I want to say he was like the 3rd highest player, and I mean just behind him was Reece James, right? So ahead of him was Kai Havertz and Raheem Sterling, who was playing left wing back or whatever. I don't know. It's weird to say. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if like Potter takes him off early in games, sort of thing. So I don't know. Like, he had penalties, right, at Arsenal, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, but I feel like they weren't good, or
Yeah.
I feel like they had like penalty like roulette at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen like his bad seasons at Arsenal from Fantrax's perspective. He's fucking terrible. Like, he's a frustrating asset.
So I'll broach that question to you that way, right? Or I'll reword his question to you that way. Like last season for the, I don't want to say half, but the quarter of a season that he played at Arsenal, played 14 games, started 12. He had 4 goals, 2 assists, and averaged 7.2 Fantrax points per game. And then the season before, on 29 games, he had 10 goals, 3 assists, and 8 points. So for the last 5 seasons or 4.5 seasons, he's been declining from an average perspective in the Premier League. 14.7 in 17-18, then 12.4 in 18-19, 11.8 the year after, 8 points, and then 7.2 points. Would you expect that this average continues the trend down, or like do you imagine that his average would be higher than the 7.2 points that he put up on the partial season last year?
Honestly, I'd go as high as maybe 8.59. That's what I'm expecting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in that season, as I said, which was 2021, like he had 29 games, which is about as many games as there are left this season, and he scored 10 goals and 3 assists. So would you be happy as a Chelsea fan, firstly, with 10 goals, 3 assists on the season?
Double-digit returns? Yeah, why not? Like, the thing is, though, if I remember correctly, I feel like he predominantly also played in, like, back 4 systems or 4-3-3 systems, 4-2-3-1 systems. And I feel like we are going to definitely be playing back 3, back 5, that sort of thing. So it's hard to even project that output. But yes, as a fan, I'd be happy with 10 goals from him.
Got it. Okay. Well, I feel like that answers the question. On to another player evaluation from Ben. The question was, evaluate Grealish's season so far in food terms. For example, a mistaken kebab on a drunken way home, a Makidi kids meal deal, a set dinner with the in-laws, a coffee to go. You get the idea.
Oh man, what is I gotta pull up Grealish's season so far because he's barely played football, I find, right? Okay, so Grealish's season by games. So he's played 3 games on Fantrax. He's had so starting from like I guess the earliest, August 7th or whatever, against West Ham, 90 minutes, 7 points, 45 minutes against Bournemouth, 6 points, then 76 minutes versus Wolves, 21 points. So
he was injured in between though, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So I would, if I had to, in terms of food, I think he is like fasting for Ramadan. So
that's fair. It's not really food, but it's a food themed event.
Yeah. You know, you've been fasting all day. You're not really getting much. You're kind of tired, and then bam, you get hit with a fucking awesome feast of like everything halal under the sun. You know.
That's fair. I rate that one as well. I didn't know what kind of answer you were gonna give, but better that this question was aimed at you than me. And now the last question from Ben in our Q&A was a special question for you. When should managers start preparing for his beloved World Cup? How should they prepare their roster, and how should they emotionally prepare for the World Cup?
So, I don't know if you heard that apparently Argentinian players asked for time off from club. I guess what is it? I don't know what's the word I'm blanking on. Like responsibilities? Yeah. They basically don't want to play the last few game weeks for their clubs because they want to be fit and firing for the World Cup. Now, where do clubs in the EPL really draw the line, right? In terms of like paying respects for international squads, that sort of things, right? So it's going to be interesting, but I feel like clubs that actually have stuff to play for, like they're fighting relegation or they're fighting for the title, won't respect that. But everyone in between you might see risks, right? So like you got to look at teams that are actually going, like players that are actually going to the World Cup as well though, right? I don't know, like we'd have to randomly pick one, like who boy? It's a hard one, this one. We'd have to randomly just pick a team. I don't know, Brentford, like Damsgaard for Denmark. Mm-hmm. Maybe he gets less game time. But then you could spin it the other way, right? Now players want to be building fitness going into the World Cup as well.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting conundrum. My thing is that if you made that, like, I've seen these reports, right? Like, people asking for time off. Like, we had, of course, with COVID, a ton of these weird, like, fights between confederations or, like, national governing bodies and the clubs. And it will be interesting to see how those relationships obviously are, and if they're strained, and if people actually do think ahead or want to do it, because it sets like a weird precedent, right? Like you can't excuse one nationality and not the others, and then somebody arguably goes on and wins it, and then has like the fingers pointed back at the clubs. And I just think it's probably going to be too much to think or try to manage through logistically. My guess is that we want to just continue to have who's in form, and then irrespective if they plan to go away or not. I actually am more concerned about how you prepare after the World Cup than before.
Yeah,
that's actually my thought. Like, how do I actually
100%.
prepare post World Cup? Because then you have the variability of players that went long in the tournament versus folks that got eliminated early. And then I think that that's a bigger consideration than planning going into it.
And I mean, you have injuries, and then what if there are players that have been playing consistently in the league, but then go to the World Cup and actually don't play football? Do they come back rusty?
Yeah, no, right. Totally agree. Like, I think that all of that stuff, and I mean, the travel, of course, shouldn't be the worst thing and going away. But yeah, I think that the post World Cup like shenanigans and how you actually plan for that is the thing that I am more planning ahead for, and that's why I've loaded up on Fab and I have 149,000. I don't even know how much I have at this point.
Yeah, or they play every single game in the World Cup and they come back and miss the first few league games, like how England assets were just shite at the start of that Euro season, which was
exactly
last season, this season.
Yeah, not this season.
Yeah.
Season
Last
before
season.
last. Yeah.
Yeah, like Mason Mount and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Those are questions. Thank you so much, guys, for all your questions. Really appreciate it. And now we'll jump into our final segment, which is the FA/Waiver Picks. So if you're new to the segment, typically what we do is we talk about assets that are under 50% owned. So we usually do rattle through like a list of players, which, I mean, we'll just mention their percentages and stuff, but I think what we'll do is we'll focus on one asset per team, just to make things quick and simple. So
yeah, sounds good. So, I mean, we'll kick off with Arsenal Spurs. I'll take home, you take away. So, I mean, we talked about the player that I'll call out from Arsenal a little bit earlier. You were fortunate enough to add him last game week, and that's Fabio Vieira at 36% ownership. He might be fool's goal after that goal on one shot on target. But at 36% owned, and you called out if there's any Arsenal injuries in midfield, like it seems like he will play, and I think they've looked very creative. It obviously does depend on who he might be filling in for. You would imagine that he's filling in the more attacking role. We've seen Zambi Lokonga fill in for Partey in the more defensive role. So from the attacking perspective in the middle of the park, Odegaard is obviously like cleaning up and picking up these random goals or random points. Xhaka is picking up these random points. So Vieira seems to be able to swap in for either of them, and it seems to be more a system, a result of the system than it is necessarily who the player is that is working out for Arsenal. Of course, the caveat being I still believe Arsenal had like the easiest run to start the season, which is why
they did.
Which is why I think is fool's goal, like their form and also like that performance the last game might be a little bit of fool's goal. So I mean, that 36% ownership I think is still worth a good punt. But I wouldn't necessarily chase it as like a nailed on asset.
Yeah, I mean their first real test was versus you guys and they got beaten 3-1, right? So I mean, this fixture could play into Spurs' hands perfectly as well, right? Because they could set up easily with a counter-attacking system. I mean, Son is back in goal-scoring form. But, I mean, speaking of assets that are under 50% owned, Sanchez 44% and Bentancur 41%. I want to focus on Bentancur just because, you know, based on the data dump that we went through, if Leicester can get through, you know, Spurs and put up all these attacking potential, maybe Arsenal could do the same, right? Because Arsenal do look really good moving forward. So that's why I'm not going to really talk about Sanchez. But Bentancur, who got his first goal of the season, right, versus Leicester. But I mean, is that really a mark? Like scoring versus Leicester? But he might be one of those steady Eddie options, right, that you can kind of pick up depending on the size of your league. So we'll go on to the next fixture, Bournemouth versus Brentford.
Yeah, in terms of Bournemouth, I mean, wheeling back 1 second, we didn't even talk about the slate overall having two derbies. And, well, two actual derbies, North London derby and the Manchester
I
derby.
thought you were talking about Crystal Palace versus Chelsea.
Well,
London
I was going to
derby.
say, there's a London derby in there as well, so we'll get to that one as well. But back to Bournemouth, Brentford. We talked a little bit about this at the top, that Solanke is the only player there with greater than 50% ownership. And then there's like good options coming up with a good fixture list. So I think Billing is the second best option coming off last game with a goal, 2 key passes, 3 tackles, 1 double-digit hauls in both games in September. And looking like a really good asset. So that's my favorite one to call out. But I think Tavernier is not a bad shout as well. But in terms of one name that I'd look for, Billing is my number one for Bournemouth this week.
From Brentford. So Brentford have a bunch of players that are under 50% owned. So Norgard 44% owned, but he's coming back from injury. I don't know where he's at. And the reason I went with a long list is because it's Bournemouth, right? They are still technically a relegation candidate team, right? Even though Bournemouth is at home or whatever. So I don't know if you want to maybe gamble on Janssen 25% owned, Henry 23% owned, or Hickey 15% owned. But if Norgard isn't playing, I feel like Brentford will be a lot leakier in defense. So maybe don't punt on the defense. And then maybe punt on the fact that they could actually score versus Bournemouth, because Brentford have been scoring lots of goals this season, right? Do they have like maybe top 5, top 6 in terms of most goals scored in the league so far? I feel like they do, right? Because it's probably only Arsenal, Man City, Spurs, and Liverpool who have more or tied with them in terms of goals scored. So Brentford have goals in them, right? Ivan Toney's on form. He made the England squad, all that sort of stuff. So then if you want to punt on attacking assets, depending on if he starts, maybe, Visser 20% owned, De Silva 20% owned. Janel does a tidy job in midfield, 26% owned since Norgard's gotten injured, right? He's gotten a bit of a nail spot. But then the one I really think you should punt on is Damsgaard, 12% owned, right? So we talked about Damsgaard already in the questions. You know how I feel about him. If he gets a start, I think you definitely do roll him out and hope for the best.
Man, I think we need another clip for you or me or whoever we feel becomes too enamored with specific players. And it needs to be like this disclaimer of like, if it lasts longer than 5 game weeks, then consult your doctor. Because honestly, like, I respect your Damsgaard plug. And I don't want to point fingers at my own biases, but yeah, I feel like we need to get you some professional help sooner rather than later, man.
Roll out one of those like How I Met Your Mother intervention banners.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate it, but as I said, I could predict where you were gonna go with that one. A long list of 8 names, and then you end up back at Damsgaard. So if I was to shift focus to the first, or not first, but the second of the London derbies, Crystal Palace Chelsea. I mean, Palace is coming off a blank game week, and obviously there's a big game against Potter with his first first Premier League game in charge of Chelsea. Yep. They're away. I think he's not had a home game yet because he was away in Champions League as well, right? So honestly, when I went through the Crystal Palace list, this was a name that I think we called out like pre the blank game week when we had a loss at a pod, and that was Czech Decore at 24%. He's been a steady Eddie, and I still want to see more. So that's why I am punting on him. I did add him and then dropped him as I tried to fill up my roster last week. But when team sheets come out, he might sneak back into my starting 11. Outside of that, like, I don't want to touch their defense. I am a little bit torn on their attackers are all highly owned. So I think Decore is a sneaky available option that if you wanted to pick up somebody, like, I wouldn't mind taking a punt, but it might be still of a wait and see post the Chelsea game, because I have no clue what Chelsea's going to do with Potter in charge.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Chelsea, 2 assets that I've listed here. Kante, who's back in training, 49% owned. I think he could very much come back into the fold. I mean, Potter does like his defensive midfielders, right? The likes of Bissouma, Mwepu, Caicedo. So he has a knack of like playing them at least. But again, with Kante's injury record, like, who knows how he's going to be protected and stuff like that. Because look at what Potter did with Lamptey, right? Once Lamptey pulled his hamstring, like, Lamptey basically never started games anymore. But Kovacic is the one I want to focus on, 28% owned. So he started under Potter in that Champions League game, played 81 minutes. In terms of counting numbers, he won one aerial duel out of 3. He had 3 tackles won, but the worrying thing is that he had 0 key passes. So I'm not sure what is going to happen, right? In terms of Kovacic's potential moving forward, because I don't know if he's better in a 3-4-3 versus a 3-5-2 sort of system, right? Where he's just trying to progress the ball versus actually providing, passes for the attackers sort of thing, right? So it'll be interesting how that one plays out. But maybe you could kind of avoid Chelsea assets for this one. This would be a more long-term sort of view into things. Anyways, next game, Fulham versus Newcastle.
Yeah, Fulham versus Newcastle. I mean, I like this game in terms of attacking creativity. Like, I think Mitrovic should feast. I'm expecting a high-scoring game.
Really?
Yeah, the only tricky thing, of course, I say that, but then Isak is injured, and I guess Calvin might be coming back. But I still expect that both teams will go for it, and I expect like another one of these weird like 3-3 games. But let's see, maybe I should put a punt on that right now. From a Fulham perspective, the one I wanted to call out, if anyone's been listening, like I feel kind of dirty calling this out, because he's old. And I don't know if he's actually going to last like a full like 90 minutes. I don't expect him to, but given his performance in the last game where he lasted 69 minutes, nice. He had 3 key passes. He had an assist. Like, it's Will.i.an, right? Like, he currently sits at 30% ownership. Like, I think he's one of these ones that, yeah, if the team sheet comes out and he's starting, I think you want to like gravitate towards that. I mean, on the same front, like I think that somebody like Bobby de Cordova-Reid, I could have just said Bobby Reid. I don't know why I tried to trip up on his entire long hyphenated name. But yeah, somebody like Bobby Reid, I might like look at as well, or Dan James. But yeah, I feel like I want to get the creators creating for Mitrovic. If the game script was probably going to be a more cagey one, or if you disagree with me, I think that their defenders are also like decent shouts. Like the top one on that list is Adarbayo at 6%, but I think we know their wing backs are heavily involved in their like chance creation as well. So I think there's decent options depending on how you think this game is going. So if you think that Newcastle won't have a lot of or any striker available, because I think that Chris Wood is out as well, right? If I recall.
I think he has a rib injury or something like that.
Yeah, so if they don't have any striker and then they end up playing, God, I don't know who they play up top, but if they're playing with actually no striker, then maybe you want to focus on like the upside of potentially getting the wing backs. Because if
like
that's
Tete?
the case, yeah, like Tete or Tete. I won't say Mbabu because you've finally gotten over him. But yeah, I want to like my first options are like the attackers. I think Will.i.an is like the best option, the most wily veteran. So Will.i.an would be top shout for me, but a lot of options available.
Yeah, I like that fullback shout, man. Because I'm definitely worried about Newcastle scoring this game week. And with their injuries and all that, maybe the likes of Ryan Fraser gets a look in. At 16% owned, but I mean, you're scraping the barrel here, really.
I think the real question is who starts up top, right? Like, if they don't have a traditional striker, do they go with
Joelinton, the actual striker that they signed?
I mean, like that would be a blast from the past, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. I did make a note of, I think Shelby might be due soon. I don't know. Like maybe latter half of this second phase of the season sort of thing.
Yeah, I think he was still out. I mean, I dropped him in my dynasty team, so I gave up on. I freed up that spot and put Isak in it instead. All
right. Well, then forget about that then.
Yeah, I think Fraser's a good show though. I think in terms of like attacking creators, like maybe they just throw like Almiron up top and like have Fraser creating for him. Who knows? I don't know. This will be definitely an interesting game to watch. Yeah. Just going downhill. Next game, Liverpool-Brighton. I think there's only 1-0 shout on the Liverpool side, which is Tsimikas. Robbo is still out, I believe, so Tsimikas should be starting on your left. I think we've seen how he's created in his cameos. I mean, people would say he's the best backup left back in the league. So that's where it would go, right? He's still sitting at 33% owned. I don't know why a Robertson owner wouldn't have added him. But yeah, if he's still sitting around, I think he is somebody that you want to go and pick up, right? Like, I don't even know who the coach at Brighton is, but it's their first game in charge. So yeah, I think
Deserby.
Okay, yeah, whatever he is. I haven't seen I can't picture his faces yet, so the name will obviously mean nothing to me. So yeah, Simicast is a name that I would show at 33% owned.
Who does Deserby look like, boy? He definitely looks like someone I know, you know.
I have no
I'm trying to think of a Deserby doppelganger. But anyways, yeah, I really like that shout, man. It really pains me that all our under 50% owned assets that we suggest are
all owned in our league. Yeah. It's like we plug these players for the community, and we go through the list, and literally every single one of them is already owned in our league.
Yeah, it's so annoying. All right, so from Brighton. So I mean, I'm still like gathering information and all that sort of stuff, but like his time at Sassuolo, like he was like playing some really, really attacking football, De Zerbi. So I'm mainly gonna suggest attacking assets, right? And these are like real shots in the dark, because who knows how this manager is gonna roll out, what he's gonna do, right, moving forward. So I mean, Estupinan 36% owned could be a good option because he played really well going forward. But the real shots in the dark are Undav 7% owned and Mitoma 0% owned. Like, I know Undav does have like good scoring pedigree when he was in the German league, or was it Bundesliga 2 or something like that. But even Mitoma in his like few cameos or whatever under Potter, he just looks like a really exciting prospect. So I mean, if any of these guys start or you know get a look in, like I think it's definitely worth a punt rostering moving forward.
Yo, there's another proposal. Like, can we come up with some name for people that we reco that are 0% owned? Because yeah, if we could find somebody that's 0% owned, but is like a punt, like we should claim that. Like we need to label that and brand it.
Yeah, we really should.
Yeah. Southampton Everton, which is the next game on the docket. Yeah, the most obvious shout to me, because like if I speak high level game script, like I expect this one to be somewhat cagey. Like we know Everton struggles, and I mean they've created and not converted. I think this ends up being a feast for Bella Kotchap. He's done it against the big teams. He showed up against United. He showed up every time he's been called on. He's coming off the back of his first Germany cap in the game against England. Like, yeah, so from that perspective, I have high hopes for this kid. I'm very high on him. And I think that if they're going to roll out this creative but ineffective Everton attack, like I think he'll clean up in terms of ghosties. I think it could go either way if he actually keeps a clean sheet. So I don't think you're playing for that, but I think you would be playing for ghosties with Bella Kotchap. He's still sitting at 21% owned, of course, not available in our league, but yeah, he's a name that I like, not just for now, but just for the long term, because yeah, like his fixtures are a little bit difficult, but like I think he's a nailed on starter in this lineup, and he's proven that he could get ghosties as well.
Yeah, I like that shot because I mean, I don't know if DCL will start the game. So if Mopai or whatever is starting, he only scores golazos. And if you want to take a look at the West Ham centre-back outputs as reference, as, you know, potential, if these centre-backs put up points, maybe Bella Kotchap will put up points. A man like Thilo Kehrer, who had 3 negative scoring point games so far in the season, he scored 5.25 points against them.
Yeah.
So maybe it's an indicator that, you know, a centre-back will do well. So yeah, just
foreshadowing my West Ham under the radar pick.
There you go. But from Everton, so I think Southampton are kind of struggled to score recently. I think if you look at like the form table, I'm just gonna quickly pull that up. Like the last 6 games, they've only scored 6 goals. So they're not really free scoring or whatever at the moment. And I feel like Hassan Hudler are just like chop changing his attackers. So there's no consistency there. So maybe you might get a clean sheet out of it, right? Mikolenko 33% owned, or Coleman, who's coming in for Patterson at 1% owned, right? Another one of those close to 0% players that, could be a beast moving forward. But I do like the likes of Onana 29% owned and Idris Gueye at 11% owned. I think these steady eddies could be gold moving forward. I just, you can never go wrong with steady eddies, man. We really should test the theory of having a full steady eddy team and seeing how it does in a league. Honestly.
Yeah, no, I'd be all game for that.
Yeah.
I'll speed ahead to West Ham Wolves. I think as I say, you talked about my pick. It's been fascinating to study the new signing Kerr in defense. I mean, I'm not looking at anybody in attack. I don't understand anything is happening at West Ham from an attacking perspective, from a creative perspective. Kerr has come in. As you alluded to, you rattled off all these negative points that you put up. Like, I don't think there's any more like dung in the barrel this guy could be. I'm betting that post like getting like a good positive haul, that he has turned it around. And along with West Ham's fixtures turning, I think that I would want to keep an eye on Kerr. I feel like it's still too early for me to recommend anyone from this team, but I'm hoping that if they feel like their defense is solidified, that pulls through the attack as well. So Kerr at 6% owned is somebody that I have an eye on. I think he's been chopped and changed a couple times in our league as well. But yeah, I think in most leagues, people have not bothered to look at West Ham assets because they've been trash.
So bad. So from Wolves, because West Ham have pretty much struggled to score most games, you could maybe punt on the likes of Johnny, 47% owned, or Semedo at 16% owned. But up front, now that Jimmy has this really serious injury, Guedes might be a shout at 45% owned, or Diego the Wolfman Costa at 35% owned. If you think this old fart, just like Will.i.an, can get points, he could be a hidden gem, man, of a forward for rest of phase 2 of the season. Or Moutinho is another kind of a higher, like a fancy steady eddy. Like, he is just churning key passes out of his ass. 33% owned. So I don't know. Out of these 5 though, if you had to pick a punt, which one would it be?
I would go. I want to say would go Guedes.
Yeah,
because my thing is, if you go pick up one of these players, like, and you're looking ahead a couple weeks, like, they have West Ham, at West Ham, at Chelsea, then Nottingham, at Crystal Palace, Leicester, Brentford, Brighton, like, and then Arsenal. All that, like, those are the fixtures before the World Cup. I think they're good fixtures. Like, take out the Chelsea game, take out the Arsenal game at the end. I think they're all good fixtures, right? So
yeah,
I think from the perspective of looking to get somebody who would be nailed, I'm not picking the old guy. I'm picking the 25-year-old who is arguably playing for his World Cup spot as well, right?
True. Yeah, very good point. So we can move on to the next fixture, which is the Manchester Derby. You looking forward to this one?
I don't know. I want to say yes. I mean, you always look forward to the Derby. I mean,
yeah.
I think it is good that the Manchester Derby is not like the North London Derby is actually first game of the weekend. Because then I think I'll be back into wanting to watch football.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't know how Arsenal or Spurs fan feels with that big of a game coming off the international break, but I like that at least we have a little bit of football to get me back into it. Ask me to predict a score. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I think if you end up with a score draw, I'd be happy. Like, I don't want to lose, obviously, but I don't think I'm going into it at the Etihad to necessarily thrash them. But I wouldn't be surprised if you come out with a sneaky 3-1. Sneaky 3-1. This is wishful thinking.
Right.
Wishful thinking.
what picks do you have though from the home team?
I mean, from the home team, I think we already talked about this at the top. Akanji at 49%. I think with their centre back, whatever, Quagmire.
You're the second person that brought up this word to me, Quagmire, and okay. Before I bring up the Family Guy reference, like, what is the actual meaning of this word?
I don't know. You want me to say, "Hey Google," or define a quagmire? A soft, boggy area of land that gives way underfoot. No, it's an awkward, complex, or hazardous situation. So
Interesting.
yeah. So I mean, it is a little bit like confusing how no matter how they get one centre back fit, like another one gets injured. And whenever you feel their centre back pairing is nailed, then it becomes this like roulette wheel, or rotating door into the injury room. So yeah, I think Akanji, seemingly the most fit, logically should be starting alongside Diaz, coming off a goal and assists. Yeah, I think, of course, he's only had the one game before the international break after the transfer window closed, but I'd just add him. I'd 49% on. Maybe he's out there. As I say, I highly doubt he's out there in the leagues of our listeners, but if he is, I'd say, like, snap him up.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout. With the Stones injury, the Laporte, I don't think being rushed back, maybe. I think him and Diaz would be the ones to start for me. United, I have no assets to suggest, Kyle. I don't think there's anyone under 50 that is worth risking or punting on. I don't know. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I mean, for this game, I want to say there isn't. I think that the squad is mostly healthy. I don't see any reports of big injuries coming out of the international break. I mean, if you want somebody on a bubble, I would venture a bet that Casemiro starts. I mean, he got a goal for Brazil.
Yeah.
And he's at 53% owned. As I said, I would imagine that he's owned in all the leagues of our listeners. But if he is not, then I would definitely add him up. And then everybody else that is under 50%, I wouldn't be rushing out to get them. If Casemiro doesn't start, I was going to say if Casemiro doesn't start. Yeah, he's at 53%.
That's been a drop.
Casemiro.
Managers have lost patience with him then.
Somewhat. I don't know. I try to not keep track of what it is that the ownership level is at, even though I think we've probably flagged that in some spreadsheet somewhere. I was going to say, though, quickly that if maybe he doesn't start, if one of Fred or McTominay starts, then I don't know. Maybe it's not the worst thing. I think City's midfield definitely will be active. There's a possibility that big game Scott will show up. So I like a punt on Scott. So or generally, I like to take punts on Scott because I like him as a player.
Interesting. All right, next game, Leeds versus Aston Villa. Who do you have?
Literally the same theme as like those punts on United, but I think these assets have actually been performing from a ghosty perspective. Of course, we had the anomaly game, like from a stats perspective for them before the break, but in the middle of the park, Mark Rocca and Tyler Adams, I think those are the two shouts at 27% and 22% owned. I like Rocca over Adams. I think he has a slightly higher floor in terms of his performances, but yeah, I think both of them represent some value. I think outside of that, there's like more punts on the defense, which I think I want to wait and see because Pascal Struijk is, I think, the most nailed defender and highest owned, but at the same time, like there is Liam Cooper and Llorente and Christensen and Ayling and Koch. So they have a lot of defensive options, and Firpo, I think, is almost back from injury as well. So they have a lot of defenders that could put up points, but I don't know who starts, and that gives me a little bit of caution. So I think nailed in the middle of the park, Rocca and Adams would be places I would look for under the radar picks.
Interesting. Yeah. Some steady eddies. You know?
Yeah.
I really didn't want to suggest anyone from Aston Villa. Like, I wrote this with a lot of pain. Like, Douglas Luiz, 11% owned. I just don't know what to expect from them. Really.
You don't even know if he's going to start, right? Like, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. But that's only because this guy got injured, right?
Yeah,
Boubacar
Kamara, right?
whatever.
Yeah, I know, that makes sense. We should be able to, like, you would expect that. That injury was bad, right? So he's out for a while, Kamara. And he had made that midfield position his own. Luis being back, it should be tempting. But honestly, that's why I like Jacob Ramsey. And I was happy I kind of got him. Because he's only at 54% on, so a little bit over. But you would imagine that if Douglas Luiz is playing, that Jacob Ramsey is also playing, and he's probably going to get more points.
License to attack.
Yeah,
really.
so I like actually Ramsey as the play there. But as I said, we wouldn't recommend because that's against our rules. Last game of the weekend, bottom of the table.
The biggest game.
Bottom of the table clash. I think these games just have so much stakes on them. I love it. Leicester versus Nottingham Forest. From an attacking perspective, I called out Patson Daka at 41%. We have talked about Leicester ad nauseum. The creative juices are flowing in the team. The defense is atrocious. Vardy is old, and yet he's my only fit striker in my team. It sucks. But Daka is definitely the best striking option. Like, he's better than Iheanacho, he's better than Vardy. So from that perspective, that would be one I would shout. He's still somewhat under-owned at 41%. But I think he should be the one starting. Their fixture list has gotten significantly easier as well. So not that it was ridiculously hard, but they have after Nottingham Forest, at Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Leeds, Wolves. So from that perspective, if Daka is going to be a nailed-on starter and they're going to be getting creative contributions from Barnes and Madison and Tielemans, I think I would want to hold on. I would want to get him and hold on to him.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that because I have Daka in our league. So
and I mean, and that was part of the rationale for me drafting, or did I draft him or picked him up right after the draft to cover off? I picked him up, dropped Dan Burn, and picked up Daka before the first game.
Yeah,
being smart to cover off Vardy, and now look at me now. But if only I had a little patience, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna maybe suggest some assets that could get attacking returns versus Leicester because Leicester's defense is so bad. Have they conceded the most goals this season? They have, right? Surely. I don't need to look that up to say that they have. Yeah, 22 goals. Yeah, I looked it up. God damn, that's a lot. They're the only team above 20 goals conceded.
Yeah, they're trash. And Bournemouth conceded 9 at Liverpool, right? Think about that.
Wow, true. Yeah, Bournemouth is second most with 19. But, I mean, Nottingham Forest then with 17, right?
Hendo is broken.
Yeah.
I need Hendo to be better.
This is the 3-3 game that you're looking for, Kyle.
It could be.
You know? Right? So I'm going to suggest Awoni 33% owned, Ryan Yates at 3% owned. We shouted him a few game weeks ago as coming back into the team, coming back into fitness. Like, he's going to pop up, I think, with random attacking returns here and there. And maybe Renan Lodi will be the asset that, we thought he would be at 28% owned. Like, he showed potential to be, in the right spots as an attacking wingback. He's displaced Toffolo, who was smashing it this season. But yeah, I think Awoni would be my pick of the lot, 33% owned. Though he's not putting up ghost points. So just, I don't know. Would he need ghost points versus Leicester? Score a hat-trick, right? Surely.
Yeah, I know. Son has shown you the way. Like, go be budget Mitrovic and just banging goals, right? Like, put pressure on the defense. If you talk game script, like, you want them to get into the white attacking players, put pressure on the defense, or from the white attacking players, put crosses in for Awoni, through the middle, attack, the defense, put Johnny Evans under pressure, whoever is playing alongside him, or whatever is this. Fire shots in on terrible Danny Ward. I don't think it's a terrible, game plan to concoct. I could see this one being relatively high scoring as well. I just hope, for my sake, that Henderson starts to save again. And I'm sure other people are in that same boat because this guy has gone from literally like a save machine to now just like conceding on every shot he has faced in the last couple of games. It's atrocious.
It's pretty grim, man. Listen, if Ben Leno is available, go pick him up, man. Maybe
I know. I feel like that's actually a good shout out. Like, I mean, if people do need like goalkeeper things, maybe we should just have a separate goalkeeper like segment and just call out like our goalkeeper pick of the week.
Yeah. I like that. All right, so that is everything. That's the pod. Obviously we hit 2 hours as per usual. Standard, but I mean, I loved it. It was good, you know. What is it? Talking shop? Is that what you call it?
I can't remember. It's
Talking shop?
Yeah, what hour is it for you? Is 9:46 p.m. for me. It's well into
2:46 a.m.
well into the morning hours for you.
Yeah, I've got to go. I've got like a barber appointment early in the morning because I'm doing this whole Chelsea thingy tomorrow, which is exciting.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Big Shot, eh?
Listen, I know people, you know. I got an opportunity. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm definitely gonna do it. But we'll jump into the details of that on the next podcast, I think, because I need to get some sleep and we've rambled on long enough. Any closing remarks, final thoughts? You want to add anything, or should we just sign off?
No, man, I'm glad football is back, even though I was also glad to have gotten a break from it. We gave folks hopefully enough content to get them prepped for this game week, and I think, moving forward, we'll really zero in on the next, 8 game weeks pre-World Cup. So try to make sure that we help people go into that break, hopefully in the best position possible with their teams.
Yeah, and we've got like a small little clusterfuck of fixtures as well. I think, is it 11, 12, 13? Or 12, 13, 14? There's another midweek game week thing coming up as well.
Yeah.
So we'll try to be consistent with the content and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah, a lot of football coming, guys. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see you on the next episode then. Until next time. Peace.